6:39, we'll call this council meeting to order, January 13th, 2025. We'll get the clerk to initiate our national anthem. So if you'll all stand. Thank you, everyone. I was just thinking we're going to have to get World Junior Hockey involved in our national anthem singing. There's more robust song on those. Adoption of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Grell, the agenda be adopted as circulated, and that council suspend the rules of the procedure bylaw for this meeting to allow for delegation to be added as item 7. All those in favor? Or any questions I should ask? Anybody have any questions on that slight change? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to in camera. There is no scheduled in camera. Therefore, reporting out is likewise. There is no report. Delegation. Tonight we have Daniel Seagull of Seagull Construction to discuss a proposal to address Ontario's housing crisis. I'm assuming Mr. Seagull is joining us virtually.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I've just asked him to go ahead and promoted him to a panelist, and so he should be able to share his screen now.
Okay, Mr. Seagull, can you hear us?
I can. Thanks for having me this evening.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
The floor is yours.
so my name's Daniel Siegel. I'm a builder from Siegel Construction with a history of laneway houses and garden suites. I'm here this evening because there's a housing crisis in Ontario, and I hear a lot of problems, and I don't hear too many solutions. And so this is probably somewhere between my 50th or 60th delegation at a municipal council in Ontario. And so I've heard a lot of different responses, but I think at the end of the day, now more than ever, housing creation is the problem. In your municipality, the affordable detached purchase price, according to Bill 23, is $373,000. And looking at that relative to where things were 20 years ago, that number seems ridiculous to me, ridiculously high. I think that most of you, judging from the color of your hair, remember a day where houses were not this expensive. And frankly, probably also remember how the economics worked when it was cheaper to own a house than it was to rent. And, you know, I don't have to tell you that things have changed. Generally, prices are more expensive. None of the numbers work. It's generally more reasonable to rent a house than it is to own these days. And I think primarily that's an issue of lack of supply. So affordable house, or I'd say affordable or attainable. I talk about it in the context of home ownership. What is considered attainable? And frankly, not very much is these days. But attainable housing has only been built twice in Canadian history, in the 1920s and the 1930s, and then again in the 1970s and the 1980s. Outside of that, predominantly people like myself have taken attainable houses and fixed them up and made them not attainable anymore. And so, what I'd like to do is work with municipalities across the province to build subdivisions of attainable homes. And the pitch basically goes along the lines of let's build somewhere between 25 to 75 modest homes and sell them or rent them at market rates and rinse and repeat. Start a project and be out of it in 2 to 3 years and then start another project, which sounds kind of crazy until you realize that pretty much every single CMHC program available right now on their website is a rental-based solution. And what that really means is that they don't have a solution to the housing crisis. The solution is everyone's going to be a tenant for the rest of their lives. And that lack of hope is worrisome. And I say that because there's a municipality south of the border called Muskegon, Michigan, where they've been building attainable houses since 2016. They're a relatively small operation, but they've still built 200 houses and they're doing it sustainably, where they develop land and they sell it publicly, and they use a community land trust to ensure that people who buy it don't turn around and flip it for way more than what they paid. And my ask this evening is basically to refer this to council or refer this to staff for a report so that I could sit down with your planners and your finance guys and gals and see whether we can't come up with a solution that doesn't involve rental-based solutions, which frankly don't give hope to people. I think everyone in this room, or most people in this room, feel like home ownership is the key to accumulation of wealth. And without that key, it's really hard to make a life for yourself in this province. I know a lot of younger people are considering leaving the province because the thought of creating a family just doesn't exist. And I think that maybe not right now with where the Liberals are in their political ambitions, but with a change of government, I think that there might be a lot more opportunities in the next 6 to 12 months where we could actually sit down and some of these things may not sound so crazy. So with that, I'd be more than happy to look at a few properties that you may already own, or else find some properties and come up with a financing model where this all makes sense. The last thing I'd like to say is that I was digging through old Toronto Star articles from 1912, and frankly, they had the exact same problems that we're having today. Home ownership, where to put the poor, and healthcare. And 100 years later, we're in a place where we have a lot of good solutions, but we're really not thinking and planning for the future as well as we maybe could be. And then with that, I'd also like to mention that I fully understand that municipalities are strapped financially and that responsibilities have been downloaded from the federal and provincial governments, and you guys are in a very, 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 very tough spot. So with that, I want to thank you for your time this evening and invite you to think creatively to come up with a solution, or at least consider solutions that specifically address the need for attainable housing creation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Any members of councils have comments or questions for Mr. Siegel? Councilor Maybe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. Mr. Siegel, do you have any of these sustainable housing programs or projects going on at this moment, or do you have something almost ready to go?
I have a lot of proposals and I have a lot of conversations at different levels. Do I have a subdivision that I've built already? I don't. I've really been on this journey for about 6 months, and as you know, municipal affairs go very slowly. And so at this point, I've got a lot of opportunities and a lot of positive feedback and a lot of uh, conversations, pro formas done. However, nothing has been built at this point.
Just as a follow-up, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
will you be having a report or any other information that you can send to us that actually outlines how you propose to have a modest costing housing
Yeah.
with the prices of labor and materials?
Well, I'll answer that question immediately. There's no need for a report here. So, I work with prefabricated builders, and so what that means is that the building arrives on site 98% complete, and that with me and my team, we have it ready for occupancy within somewhere between 1 month and 3 months, depending on what's involved. And so to build 1,000 houses in 2025, I can't do that by myself. I could maybe do 2 to 3 houses a year. But for this scale of problem, we need to use a decentralized approach with standardized parts, frankly. And that standardized part is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, where we're selling it at or below $373,000. And so my goal here is really to sell a bunch of houses at or below the detached purchase price as defined by Bill 23. And that involves profit, that involves your 4% contingency, it involves a carry-on warranty, and everything you'd expect to go along with a new house.
Just as another follow-up, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So basically, you have a prefab home that's coming to the site, but the site and all its conditions or requirements to meet the standards of any municipality would have to be subsequently added on to that price.
So correct. I mean, I guess you're referring to the zone, the upzoning, presumably from a rural zoning, plus all your sewage, septic, wastewater, utilities.
Foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. So primarily we use helical piles. They're just faster, cheaper, same deal. But for site services, I mean that's a big question, right? It's never been a worse time to find land to build a subdivision on in 2025. All the best land already exists. I was speaking to Peterborough this afternoon, and they have no excess capacity for sewage wastewater. So it's an issue. We're looking at decentralized solutions. AMO just came out with a report on their decentralized, how they feel decentralized sewage wastewater systems should be adopted through a municipal service corporation instead of at the municipal level. So there's a lot of stuff happening here. And to my earlier point, I don't think we're there right now. I think that there's a lot of parts missing politically. First of all, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has made it near to impossible to do anything, frankly. Primarily because access to capital is uniquely challenging in this province when you're limited to 25% of your revenues as a municipality to build housing. It's fundamentally impossible. However, I do anticipate changes. So I'm speaking aspirationally, and I'm hoping that with the change of government, we realize that we need to increase spending on housing. And at the current rate, the private sector isn't going to be building houses as frequently as we expected, and it's going to be up to someone else to do it. And municipalities themselves may not necessarily be well suited to do that. However, we're looking at a private-public partnership here, where somebody like myself could work with the municipality through some, municipal housing corporation to develop attainable homes.
Thank you.
Councillor Lackey, go ahead.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Just one question as to how you might address the various market values. Say, for instance, you build one of these on the outskirts of Mississauga versus building one, say, down here at our neighbor front of Yonge. you know, you've got quite a difference in what people can afford or what people can expect to pay. So if you're using a cookie cutter, how does that factor into the various markets?
Well, so I go back to Bill 23 and I look at the tables and I see what the affordable detached purchase price is. And so you go to a lot of northern communities and their affordable detached purchase price is less than the cost of, frankly, the plumbing, the electrical, and the HVAC of a traditional build. So to your point, a lot of them don't make sense. And so I'm approaching municipalities where the numbers A work and B where we're within 200 miles of the US border. And frankly, they don't always work is the answer. So low density developments don't work in Mississauga. We need stacked townhouses. You need to be at least 3 to 4 stories. In Leeds, Grenville, the density requirements might be a bit lower, and we could do single, double, or maybe 3-story developments, depending on what we're trying to do. And with that, some of the numbers still make sense, even in smaller communities on unserviced lots. So, Jeff, Councillor Lackey, did that answer your question?
Any other questions from members of council? If not, Mr. Siegel, thank you for your presentation and considerations of your info for council tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much and appreciate the time you've given me.
Okay, you're welcome. Adoption and receipt of minutes. Moved by Councillor Gorell, second by Councillor Maybe, that the December 2nd, 2024 public meeting minutes be adopted as circulated, that December 9th, 2024 council meeting minutes, December 2nd, 2024, and January 6th, 2025 committee of the whole meetings be adopted as circulated. The December 12th, 2024 special council meeting, brackets budget day, minutes be adopted as circulated, and that the November 26th, 2024 Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes be received and filed. Any comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. When I was going through the package, I could not see December 2nd, 9th, December 12th, or the January 6th minutes in my package. So I don't know what or whether I missed it or nothing there and it said wouldn't open up. There was nothing as an attachment on those minutes.
You have an ally, I think. Okay,
Yeah, we didn't get it.
okay,
Yeah. So I can't approve what we didn't see.
right. Okay, fair enough. I'm getting a lot of heads nodding around the room that they felt the same, that this was missing. So, Madam Clerk, how do you want to handle this? Just table this? We'll just defer this. If everybody's okay with deferring it? Yes, we will. We'll need a motion. Councillor Kelman is moving a motion. Councillor Maybe's gonna second. We'll give the clerk a second to catch up here on her speed typing. Okay, you've heard the motion to defer this until further down the road, perhaps the next meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Ready? It's not that we like those things to happen, but it's pleasing to know that everybody is actually reading their complete agenda. Madam Mayor, I apologize. I didn't give you a chance to weigh in on that. Do you want to dispute the rest of your members of council? No, you're good.
No, not at all. I was just going to say that the minutes that were missing, we could defer those and approve what was attached, but it's fine. It's fine the way it is. We'll just bring it back as a whole.
Okay. I'll try to be more attentive that you're with us virtually. Thank you. Staff reports. There are none. Information items, there are none. Action required items. Number 12.1 on your agenda, council members, 2025 municipal operating and capital budgets. Recommendation. I guess we'll read this and then we can have discussion if need be. Moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Grell, that the council receive Corporate Services Report 2025-002-2025 municipal operating and capital budgets, and that council approve the 2025 proposed operating budget with a net levy requirement of $12,869,100, and that council approve the 2025 proposed township residential tax rate of 0.00539115, and the council approved the 2025 proposed capital budget of $14,889,100, and the council approved the 2025 municipal operating and capital budget as proposed does not constitute approval for staff to proceed with any capital project funded in part or in whole through a grant, and that council directs staff to report to council on the success or failure of any grant applications authorized by council in respect to any capital project and provide proposed options in respect to the applicable project for council's consideration. Open to questions, comments, debate from members of council. Council Calman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. I appreciate the discussions that we've had about grants and the significant dollar amount we're looking at for some of the capital budget projects that are in the 2025 budget and the grants that are being applied for. My concern is the wording of the last two paragraphs, particularly the second last paragraph that's been added, because it lumps all of the capital projects together. So what I just wanted clarification on is, for example, the Escott Hall Springfield House project. We have tenders, we've closed tenders, we've received tenders. If we award the tender and then a grant is not received, once the tender's been awarded, do we not have to carry on with the project? I don't know if that particular project falls under the wording of funded in part through a grant. So if then it would have to come back to council. And similarly, we talked about the additional water storage capacity for Lansdowne and that we require that. We have to go ahead with that. And it is a significant dollar amount. So even if we don't receive grant funding for it, and we still have to do it. So I appreciate that, you know, it may just need that extra step that it has to come back to council, staff have to come back to council and say, we didn't receive the grant for this. But just recognition that some of these things have to be done or should be done now. And if we're awarding tenders, we have to honor those tenders, I'm assuming. So I just wanted to clarify what this wording of those additional paragraphs
Fair enough.
was to.
The CAO or the
Yeah.
Director of Financial?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. So what those resolutions are saying are it's applying to any projects as presented in the budget that are to be funded part or in whole through grant. So it's only applying to those projects. So in the operating budget, in this year's 2025 budget, the only project that applies to is the Lansdowne urbanization project. Every other capital project in that capital budget is not funded in part or in whole through a grant. So it's just saying that if we don't get these grants for projects that we've told you are to be funded in part or in whole, we need to come back. And if we're going to proceed with it without the grant, well, we got to tell you now how we're making up that difference for council's approval. That's the idea behind those resolutions. And that you'll see on the water and wastewater report has the two like resolutions in as well. And that applies the same. So in 2025, that applies to the water distribution. So really it's to say, if we aren't successful with that grant, we're going to have to come back and tell you, we still need to proceed. And this is how we're now going to fund that part.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of council? If not, I will read the question, or the motion, I should say. All those in favor? Our mayor is online. Opposed? And it's carried. Thank you. No, the mayor had her hand up. Yeah. Yeah. No, we're good. Thank you for catching that though. Moving on, 12.2, 2025 water and wastewater operating and capital budgets. Moved by Councillor Grell, seconded by Councillor Maybe. The council received corporate services report 2025-003 and 2025 water and wastewater operating and capital budgets, and that council approved the 2025 proposed water operating budget of $376,100, and the council approved the 2025 proposed wastewater operating budget of $354,400, and the council approved the increases to water and wastewater rates in accordance with the rate study effective January 2025 billing cycle, and that council approved the water and wastewater capital budget of $3,320,100. The council approved the 2025 water and wastewater capital budget as proposed does not constitute approval for staff to proceed with any capital project funded in part or in whole through a grant, and that council directs staff to report to council on the success or failure of any grant applications authorized by council in respect to any capital project and provide proposed options in respect to the applicable project for council's consideration. Comments or questions by members of council? Your worship, you're good as well? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And carried. Thank you. Agenda item 12.3, Lansdowne projects. Moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Grell. Whereas the village of Lansdowne is designated as a settlement area in the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands official plan, and as such, all residential and commercial development within the boundaries of the village must be provided access to municipal water and wastewater services. And whereas in order to accommodate planned and future growth in the village, an upgrade to the municipal water storage and distribution system is required to increase water storage for residents' needs and improve water pressure for firefighting. And whereas the required upgrades to the municipal water storage and distribution system are estimated to cost $4,501,605, and whereas a significant portion of the road, sidewalk, stormwater infrastructure, and sanitary system within the village are in need of repair and improvement, known collectively as the Lansdowne Urbanization Project. There's a second page here, bear with me. Thank you. And whereas the estimated cost of work required for the Lansdowne Urbanization Project is estimated at $14,875,000 even, and whereas without financial assistance from federal and/or provincial governments or other entities, the township will be unable to undertake the projects. And whereas through the 2025 municipal budget process, council has indicated its support for both projects on condition the township secure appropriate grant funding. Therefore, be it resolved that council approve the 2025 capital budget as proposed by staff does not constitute approval for staff to proceed with either the upgrade to the municipal water storage and distribution system or the Lansdowne Urbanization Project. And second, that staff are directed to report to council on the success or failure of any grant applications authorized by council in respect to both projects and provide proposed options in respect to the applicable project for council's consideration. Comments or questions? Councillor Maybe.
Yes, Deputy Mayor, and through you. Again, with this one, there was no attachments, and I didn't know whether there was supposed to be, because again, this information was not posted on that either. So I didn't know whether.
Sorry. Our CAO has a comment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. This comes as Councillor Lackey's notice of motion from the Committee of the Whole. So we, rather than put it under notice of motion, we put it so it was all dealt with as part of the budget reports as well. So there is no report that goes with this.
Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you to our director. I happen to be going down Arthur Street in Gananoque today, and they've got two big signs on either end, that the rehabilitation of Arthur Street, I think between Stone Street and Wellington, Councillor, maybe, is it? Well, or sorry, William Street, was about $2.6 million just for that small section of the street. Can you tell me what that, if you know what that encompassed? Was that piping under the street? Was that boulevard sidewalks? Was that the entire package? Like, what did that consist of for 2.6 million? If you don't know, I understand. I saw that sign today and I thought, well, if we're, going to be rehabilitating our streets, what did that 2.6 million buy?
Go ahead.
I personally don't know what was involved in that project. I know they were rebuilding roads and putting in sidewalks, but I'm not sure what was completed for underground infrastructure. I honestly don't know for that.
What I was
can
most
certainly look
impressed
into
with was the sign that indicated the Ontario government partnered, which
Right.
perhaps there's got to be some way we can put some pressure on our local.
So in other words, it was, sorry, go ahead.
If we could put some pressure on our local MPP.
So you're saying it was an information project sign is what you read. Okay. Councillor, maybe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. Yeah, all the infrastructure was redone on that street, as any street that they in Gananoque they do, sidewalks included. And yes, there was a provincial grant, and there was a photo op by the MPP with the mayor for that project. Also in the paper that stated all the things that they had done. And yes, it was a total redo of all infrastructure.
Any other questions? Comments, Councillor Grohl?
Thank you, and to you, Deputy Mayor. On the wording, let's see, would be down to excuse me, on the Lansdowne, we're down around clause number 4, I guess, and it says, whereas a significant portion of roads, sidewalks, stormwater infrastructure, and sanitary system within the village known as the Lansdowne Urbanization Project. It was my understanding that the Lansdowne Urbanization Project did not include sanitary systems. And one question would be, stormwater cannot be attached to a sanitary system, as I was told by J.L. Richards. Is that correct?
Thank you. That is correct. Sanitary and storm systems historically could be connected. They had combined sewers, but that doesn't exist any longer.
That's thanks to Montreal.
The sanitary was included as repairs, not replacements,
Okay.
as
those
part
are-
of the project.
Okay. And I guess my last question would be, in general terms, it says down a little further, it says secures appropriate grant funding. I assume that's to be determined what we decide is appropriate at council. Would that be fair to say?
Our CAO wants to answer that. Go ahead.
That's 100%.
Okay.
So if we are successful
Mhm.
with the USIF grant,
Mhm.
there is potentially, how much, Dave?
73%.
73% funding dollars. If we may not be ready to take on that much or that big a project on our portion of the side of it.
Mhm.
So we would come back to council and say, hey, we can fund 73% of this project. The cost to the township would be X millions of dollars,
Mhm.
which we would need to fund by a debt or
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
And council, how do you feel about that? What's your direction? And if you wanted to say, well, wait a minute, maybe we just do 25% of the funding, available funding through HUSIF, we would go back and see if that would be acceptable.
In other words,
So this
scale
is,
it a little
as
bit.
I've been
Scaling.
saying, that's right. We'll come back on, if we fail, we fail. We'll come back and say, well, what do we do now? Or here's some options
Mhm.
for that. If we're successful, we'll say, well, we're successful to the tune of X, and what's council's direction for us?
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other questions from council?
Um, just, excuse me.
Go ahead.
I think I have the idea there. That's really a scaling issue, that if we decided to, if we got X, what could we do with it? Do we scale the project accordingly? I think is the way I understand that. Because it still is, if you add those two projects together, it still comes out to close to 20 million. So the appropriate grant, that could also be, there could be grants, plural, in there as well. And we could pursue the government to the utmost.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Again, that's absolutely correct. There may be other available grants that come out between now and whenever.
The election.
You know, I said in the draft, grants from federal, provincial, or other entities. So other entities takes in like Federation of Canadian Municipalities, who is helping us with a grant for the pilot project for the Lansdowne Way site. So if we can find money out there that we can apply for, we're going to chase it as best we can.
Thank you. Just a correction. I'm not her worship, but I appreciate the comment. Councillor Kelm.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and for you. I just wanted to, along the same lines as what Councillor Grawl was just talking about, in the same section, the first section he referred to, also prioritizing. So I'm primarily concerned about the sanitary system and the repairs that are required, and that if we don't do them soon enough, there could be a breach and there could be asbestos exposed. And that, as the Director of Operations explained to us, would make the project much more expensive. So again, for me, that's something that does need to be done regardless of grant funding. So I would assume that whatever monies we do get, and I appreciate this may have to come back to council for another discussion, but that there would be a prioritization of what was done in what order.
Thank you. I'll let the Director of Operations comment on that.
Certainly, yes. The water, I would say, is probably the most important project for the village, with the sanitary being secondary. But we have identified 79 sections within the sanitary, you know, on a weighted scale, requiring work on that 1 to 5, you know, threshold of condition. So there are some repairs that need to be done. I wouldn't say that it's, you know, dire straits right now, but certainly it would be beneficial to try to preserve those sections rather than try to replace them, because the cost would grow exponentially if we did have to replace them.
Okay. Your worship, did you want to weigh in on this motion?
Thank you very much, and through you. Yeah, what Director Holliday just mentioned in regards to the specificity about how many items had been identified, that I was going to bring that up because that was at our committee of the whole that came up, and on the scale of 1 to 5. But I also just wanted, for the public's consumption, we have secured a delegation with the Minister of Infrastructure, and that was as of today, or in the Ministry of Infrastructure, in regards to our HUSIF funding. So our hope is that we can utilize the motion that was just passed in regards to, and this one as well, provided it was to pass, saying that, you know, we're poised to move ahead, but it is contingent on the province being able to contribute, and or the feds or any other entity. So I just wanted to add my comment before the vote is called.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Questions? If not, I think we all understand the length and scope of this motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the council vacancy. Moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Grell, that council declare the office of Councillor Ward 2 held by Mark Jameson vacant, and that council direct staff to move forward with option blank as described in staff report administration 2025-002 to fill the vacancy of the office of Councillor Ward 2. Madam Clerk, do you want to clarify our options, please?
Certainly. So the options were laid out in my report. It is at council's will to pick an option from 1 to 4. So the options were to just randomly pick somebody and appoint them. That obviously comes with pros and cons. Second option is to ask for a call for applicants to provide their application to myself, and then we would go ahead and move forward with at council. We would go and you would take a vote, and then the third option is to appoint somebody that did not get in one of the other options from last council. And if there was more than one option, there was an exhibit provided with how that would turn out. And the fourth is a by-election. So those are the options that are presented to council. So choosing one of those options and then putting that into the resolution is what we're looking for right now. And then we'll move forward with whatever council chooses.
Okay, is everybody comfortable if I go around the table polling your option choice? Councillor Lackey, can I start with you, please?
I go with, I believe, option 2, similar to our last vacancy that was filled.
Okay. Councillor Kelman,
Option 2 for me as well.
Councillor Grell,
Option 2 as well, as stated by Councillor Lackey.
Councillor Maybe.
Option 2 also, thank you.
Your worship,
Option 2, please.
thank you. I too would choose option 2, so I guess that's unanimous. We should have a vote just to clarify the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. Thank you. Do we want to discuss timelines on that motion now? I know we've already passed it, but do we want to discuss timelines as to how we want to set this up?
Certainly, I can provide you with that information. Just give me one moment.
This is quite a different vacancy than previous. We could kind of, what date around that today? The 13th. The next council meeting would be, what's the date in February? The 11th? The actual council meeting? There's one, the committee of the whole's on the 3rd. I don't have a calendar here in front of me right now.
It's the 10th.
10th?
It's February 10th.
Is that too soon? Do you think we could, Madam Clerk, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
You're the one that would have to, you're the one that would have to clerk all this.
Yeah, so we do have to go out. So as per that guideline that was attached to the report, so we do have to go out for a minimum of 10 days on the website,
Right.
and 2 newspaper periods.
Okay.
So it's my understanding that if I get the information to the newspapers by Wednesday, next Thursday it will run. So that would be January 23rd. The next run of that newspaper would be the 30th. So then the final, we would give those 2 weeks to have applicants. That would be the notice and application period. So it would commence at 9 a.m. on January 23rd, and then it would end at 4:30 p.m. on February 5th. That would give us the opportunity to have the candidate interviews on February 10th. Council would vote to appoint the new member on that council date as well. And then on February 10th, also at the council meeting, we would have the bylaw to confirm the new council member. So that is a tight timeline, but it also gives the opportunity to get that in before our March council training.
So the swearing-in ceremony for a successful candidate would or would not take place at that same meeting?
It would take place all on the same meeting.
Right,
Yes,
okay.
February 10th meeting.
Okay, council members, anybody got any questions or on that timeline? I guess Councillor Grell.
if we required a special council meeting to alleviate some pressure, or if some pressures are being felt, we could always put in a special council meeting, a brief, to again, alleviate some of the time crunch.
We could, yep. The February 5th, the closing of the application period allows myself to get the agenda prepared for the Thursday, and then the council meeting would be the following Monday. The candidate interviews, the council vote, and they would all have to happen. They do both have to happen on the same day. The bylaw to confirm the new council member and the taking of the oath could happen on a separate day, but that's not a huge time sucker. So we could have them all on the same day.
Go ahead, CEO.
With the caveat of however many applicants we get that are eligible.
Yeah.
So if we get a lot,
Yes.
it may alter our timelines in the need for a special council at some, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge if we need to.
Okay. Madam Mayor, do you have any comments on this? No, we're good. There's no motion required for what we just discussed and what the clerk just gave us for timelines. Are we going to get a consensus? Everybody okay with what the clerk has proposed? Yeah.
It was part of the motion, or it was part of the report.
Okay.
I think it was outlined basically in there. So
All right.
essentially by passing the motion in option 2, we're okay with that.
Alrighty. Thanks for the clarity. So we're good. So we now have a focus to fill a vacancy of a former valued member of this table. Looking forward to applications coming forward. 12.5 on your agenda, appointment of Cataraqui Conservation Full Authority Board. Moved by Councillor Grell, second by Councillor Kelman, that council appoint blank to the Cataraqui Conservation Full Authority Board for the remainder of the council term, or that council appoint blank to the Cataraqui Conservation Full Authority Board for the 2025 calendar year. Questions, discussions on that motion? Then we need nominations, please, or preferably volunteerism. Does there anyone feel they have the time to put forward or want to make a comment? Councillor, maybe?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. As everybody knows, I put my name, or had it put forward last time. But in considering, the great job that Councillor Corral has done, and that I've got a few things happening this year that's going to take a lot more time than I ever thought possible. So I don't feel that I have the time to actually devote to this properly and to report back to the council as I would wish, or as well as Councillor Corral has done. So I'm not putting my name forward.
Okay, fair enough. Any other members of council? Madam Mayor, I think your agenda is full enough, correct?
Yes, it definitely is. I would prefer that another member of council offer their time, but I do understand that not everybody has those particular evenings available or what have you. The main thing that I'm concerned with, and Madam Clerk, we did not speak about this prior to, but if I really just don't want us to go without representation on the committee, even though I realize that it's not something that I would prefer to do on a rotational basis, because it does take time to get up to speed. And Councillor Gorell made a good point that it's, there's lots of legislation and understanding what they do to really get your feet underneath you. However, we can't sit back and criticize an organization and not sit on their board. So I'm not everybody criticizes. I mean that more from a community point of view. There's many people who have strong feelings about what Cataraqui does, and so it is sort of imperative that we have somebody who sits on that committee. However, having said that, if it's the difference between not having anybody on that board or not, I will step up and do it, mainly because we need to make sure that somebody is on the board.
So just for clarity, your worship, you're willing to step in and continue at the calendar year 2025?
Correct.
That much of an obligation for now? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm similar to Counselor. Maybe my daytime is just about taking up my nighttime as well right now. That would interest me, but as Counselor, maybe I too could not commit right now. So if we have a voluntold offer from Her Worship, you're okay with that, Madam Mayor, to if we appoint
Just-
your name?
Just to be clear, Councillor Gorell, did you not indicate that these meetings are in the evening at 6 o'clock? Or 7?
Yes, the meetings start at 6:45 in the evening, and the agendas tend to be quite hefty. And I would make a comment, in addition to that, Your Worship, that the CRCA has gone through some, not redefining, but they've gone through some changes because of the provincial government, was it Bill C-23, and what came about from it. So it has been a rather challenging couple of years for the CRCA, and it certainly was a challenge for myself coming up to speed on the various acts and how the regulations were changing. However, the CRCA staff has pretty much got a handle on things from my perspective. So outside of trying to grasp the powers of the CRCA, I am going to say I believe the workload would be substantially less because the staff there appears to me to be doing quite a good job of understanding what the province wants. They've had some of their powers taken away. They've had an increase in some areas. This township relies mostly on the development review group. So if someone taking that over wants to dig in on something, that would be the area. It is a conservation authority, but the development review is the one, in my opinion, that affects most of what goes on in our zoning and planning here. And that was an area that was structurally changed by the province. And again, the CRCA staff has done in my opinion, a pretty good job of getting a handle on it. It is a bit of a work in progress. And that comes up in the various issues. The budgets, they sort of are what they are. We see the numbers each year. I'm rambling a little bit, but the fact is, I think the workload might be reduced this year for any members. And I would also clarify, the provincial government has not allowed any non-council members on a full authority board. They've pretty much banned that practice, although it seems to exist in writing, but they don't allow it. The minister has made it pretty clear that you have to be a member of a council. And secondly, you also are participating in the source water protection, which is a big deal now for the CRCA. They have a lot of power in that area. And we experience that here in this township right here in Lansdowne. We're in a source water protection area. I would be happy, I guess, to answer any other questions, but really I do believe that the workload would be reduced through the work of the staff of the CRCA. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grohl. Any other comments? Your Worship, you're still willing to leave your name stand for the remainder of this calendar year?
I will let my name stand until we can find other suitable replacement at this point, which may be by the end of the year or sooner. So
Right. Things may change, as you said. We also have another member of council by then. So, Your Worship, thank you for doing that. We'll put your name forward on the second option, which is to appoint council. The council appoint, in this case, volunteered the mayor of Township Leeds 1,000 Isles to the Cataraqui Conservation Full Authority Board for the 2025 calendar year. And we do need to vote on that. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Grell, we should also not let it slip that we thank you for your indulgence and your term on the Cataraqui Conservation Board and keeping us surprised as we knew you would. Thank you. 12.6 on your agenda, Fire Protection Grant, Cancer Prevention Initiative. I'll read the motion first. Moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Grell. The council received Fire Report Services 2025-001 Fire Protection Grant, Cancer Prevention Initiative, and that council authorize the treasurer to sign all relevant documents and agreements to facilitate receiving the funding in relation to the fire protection grant. Comments or questions, or would the chief or a member of finance want to speak to this? The chief has been voluntold.
Thank you, and through your deputy mayor. This grant came out in the summer of 2024 as initiative to work on cancer prevention within Ontario for Ontario firefighters. Ontario firefighters, as I've said, are 4 times more likely to get cancer due to the nature of our job. Gone are the days where it was a badge of honor to have dirty gear, dirty helmets. We work very hard now to make sure all our equipment is clean. We currently have 1 washer extractor at Station 1. So we also send our gear out from time to time to be checked. But having the ability to have this grant gives us 2 more extractors, which we'll put at Station 3 and 4. And then with the completion of Station 2, there'll also be 1 there. So we'll have 1 washer in every station, which will help us keep our gear much cleaner.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments to the chief or comments regarding this motion? Councillor, maybe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through to the fire chief. When I was looking at the information here, it mentioned the grant was 32,921, and for each station, 8,230, which is the 2 stations you're going to do. Is the 3rd station going to take, or the 3rd station, the new Station 2, will it take the remainder of the amount for that, or is that part of that build?
Through your worship, basically I put that in there to break it down. The government was talking about up to $10,000 per station. So every fire department that applied got they took the big pot of money and basically broke it per station. So the 32,000 will cover the 2 washers. They run almost $15,000 each.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Your worship, you're good? Okay. Okay. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 12.7 on your agenda, municipally significant event, Sillies Bay Lions Frost Fest 2025. Moved by Councillor Grell, seconded by Councillor Lackey, that council deem the Sillies Bay Lions Frost Fest for February 7th to the 9th, 2025 as municipally significant for the purposes of the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario Special Occasions permit process. Questions or comments? I see none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Agenda 12.8, I should say. 2025 interim tax levy bylaw. Motion states, moved by Councillor Grell, seconded by Councillor Kelman, that council grant first and second readings to bylaw 2025-001, being a bylaw to provide for the interim tax levy on all property classes and to provide for the payment of taxes. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mayor's update. Madam Mayor, you are the mayor, regardless of whether you're on Zoom or not.
Thank you very much. And I apologize once again for not being able to attend in person, but thank you for your indulgence. So as far as the mayor's update is concerned, staff has been working hard on preparing our briefing notes for delegations happening at Roma, and Councillor Kelman and Deputy Mayor Foti are attending Roma. We leave Saturday to head to Toronto for a few days, and we will report back on how those delegations go, and grateful to the staff who are stepping up and preparing those valuable documents. I guess part of my job that at the county level leaves me in a position where I've been exposed to some different information. I was attending the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus last week, where a number of MPs, MPPs, ministers were in attendance on the Friday. And we received a bunch of information from all of them in regards to how the funding structure may work. And I don't say this to put a rain cloud over any of our delegations or the asks that we've made or will be making in the future. All that to put a caveat on it. We're facing some tumultuous times going forward. One of the main messages that came out from all the MPs and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, who was a former MP and on Parliament Hill, is that governments are going to be focused on the potential of the economic strain that we could be facing in regards to what's going on south of the border. And in doing that, it may create chaos for a bit, and it may put both provincial and federal governments, due to the federal government likely calling a writ here shortly, programs for funding infrastructure projects not necessarily at the forefront of their minds. So it was sort of a suggestion that we temper our expectations, hope for the best, plan for the worst. So I leave that with our council, mainly because I think that it is an uncertain time in the world, and with the headlines that we see that come across our devices or through the newspapers, should you still pick up a paper, there's a lot at stake economically for Ontario and the country. But all in all, we will see our way through it. So I just say to the rest of council that we will continue on the path that we are in regards to asking for funding for infrastructure projects, but that it may be a bit of a rocky road from here for the next 12 to 18 months, depending on what happens with our neighbors and allies. So other than that, I'm glad to see that FrostFest passed this evening, and look forward to all the fun that we have up at FrostFest every year. And we thank the volunteers who are actively involved in making sure that happens. We will be delving into county joint services budget and county budget tomorrow and Wednesday. And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Maybe? Announcements, I should say. You're right. I'll take the announcements. The mayor's given her update. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. The only thing I have is that on May 17th and 18th, just to put it out there, the Ontario Town Crier Championships is going to go ahead. We have finally taken it a little further and going through for that. It will be happening in Gananoque and the township kind of collectively. I am hoping for a good turnout. Have put in for some grants and such. So we'll see how that all goes. But depending on how that plays out, depending on how many criers we have. So it will be a Saturday, Sunday event for the most of the events. And I will be asking for, I'm going to need 18 judges in total for this. So I will be asking some of the members sitting around the table, and perhaps the mayor even, to give a hand on some of this stuff. So as well as members of GAN and all the arts people around. And, you know, I want to try to involve as many of the community into this also. So that's where the judges will be required, and we'll have a great time. And I'll give you more updates on that as we proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Obvious question. Are you competing?
Being the guest crier, no. I am the, being, there's another term there that went totally out of my head when you asked that, but being the one putting the show on, I'll be doing all the emceeing, of course, but there'll be plenty of criers here that will certainly be able to show their wares. There is a very good collective of criers. I don't put myself anywhere near some of these guys or gals for that matter. So it will be a very good showing of criers across Ontario. And just to let you know, there are about 35 of them across Ontario.
Perfect. Well, that's unfortunate you can't compete. So you're saying you'll be doing crying of a different nature. Fair enough.
Crying
Okay.
on your own.
Maybe they were a little nervous coming to your hometown, realizing the support that would be there for you. And Fire Chief, did you want to comment? You're attending a pretty unique event this coming Saturday. Did you want to make a comment on that?
Thank you, and through your deputy mayor. Captain Wayne Shields with Leeds Thousand Islands Fire has been a firefighter for the township for the past 55 years. He's also been a valuable member of the Lansdowne Agricultural Society and very instrumental in the Lansdowne Fair every year. Very active with fire, usually my first one at this station at Lansdowne Station 1. He is being honored with the King's Commemorative Award at Parliament Hill on Saturday. So we will have a couple of people from fire in attendance with for that. So we're very excited for him and his family. 55 years is a momentous amount of time compared to what we see now in fire services.
Thank you, Chief. For those of you listening or members of council, if you see Wayne Shields out and about, please mention to him either before or after the award, just what your feelings are. It is unique. We are not aware, at least I'm not aware of any other members of our township receiving that award this year. We know there are others in close proximity, but it'll be a huge accomplishment for him, which a great honor to him as well. I don't have any personal announcements other than chairing the meeting tonight. I want to thank all members of council and particularly staff for all the work you've done since likely last August or July on the budget, the preparation, the readiness to get it all together. I know how simple it must be. I'm turning heads on that comment, and as well intended. No, it goes without saying, the last 2 or 3 years, the budget process is much easier to digest as members of council by the way it's presented to us, the way the numbers come together. And then, of course, then we have to make it happen. And the presentation, I think, is the real playmaker here. I think the way the heads of staff and our CAO present this to us on council just creates a lot more unity in where everybody is headed and where we want to go as a municipality. I just want to thank everybody for their role in that budget and the members of council tonight for passing it. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you. And I just remembered when the fire chief was talking is that the one other person that's getting the King accommodation is Poet Laureate Gretchen Huntley in Gann. She's going to be up there also receiving it.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Kilman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And for you, on a much lighter note, I just wanted to remind council and the public that there is a very special musical opportunity coming to Sealy's Bay on Saturday, January 25th. The Abrams will be performing at the Sealy's Bay Community Hall at 7 p.m. They are 7:30, sorry, doors open at 7. It's two young brothers, two young men, very, very talented sort of folk country musicians. I saw one of them perform with their family at the community hall before Christmas. You can watch them on YouTube. They they sell out much larger venues. So this is a really special opportunity that it's going to be in Silly's Bay. So I encourage everyone that is able to attend to get your tickets as soon as possible. If you go on the township website, the link is there to purchase the tickets.
So you're telling us it's going to sell it even quicker because the venue is smaller.
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
well, thank you. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Grau, go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, Your Worship, the family event, the Rockport Winter Carnival is February 5th through the weekend, I guess, till the 9th. And that is a family event in the Rockport Community Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully winter will accommodate winter events this year. Yet to be seen, I suppose. Next on our agenda is bylaws. Moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Grell, that a third reading and final passage be granted to bylaw number 2025-001, and that three readings and final passage be granted to bylaw 2025-002, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings to the corporation of the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands at its January 13th, 2025 council meeting.
Just wanted to double check, Mr. Chair. We're not confirming any of those minutes because they were deferred, correct? I just want to make sure that it wasn't one of the numbers, just double checking.
Sorry, can you clarify that again? I missed something there.
Through you,
So
Deputy Mayor.
Oh, the
Yeah.
clerk is going to weigh in
Go
here.
ahead, Madam Clerk.
The confirmation bylaw only confirms resolutions that have passed. So because that one's been adjourned, they're not confirmed.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure that it wasn't listed as one of them for some other reason. Thank you.
Oh, fair enough. It's nice to have a very efficient clerk next on the job here. Okay, any other questions, comments? I'll ask the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Last but not least, item number 16 is adjournment. A motion by Councillor Grell, seconded by Councillor Lackey, that council adjourn at 7:51 p.m. Non-debatable has been said before. All those in favor? Carried. I should ask opposed, but it was unanimous. So thank you everyone for your attendance. Appreciate it.